Hi, I'm Charles Edel, and welcome to another episode of Pacific Policy Pulse. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by an old friend, Dr. Michael Fullilove, Executive Director of the Lowy Institute in Sydney, Australia.
Charlie, it's an honour to be here. I feel like this is almost Australian soil in your office here at CSIS. You're a great outpost, a great advocate for the Alliance. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's not sovereign territory. That's across the street at the embassy. But Michael, what brings you to town?
Couple of things. First of all, I filmed an interview with Jake Sullivan, the outgoing National Security Advisor at the White House this week. It's kind of an exit interview where I asked Jake about the President's legacy, about what it's like to be National Security Advisor, of course about the events, amazing monumental events in Syria, but also about events closer to the home, about AUKUS, the Alliance, and the future under President Trump. So that was the first thing, which was fun to film that, in and around the White House. So that was great. Secondly, I wanted to talk to as many people, as many knowledgeable observers of the incoming administration as I could. So I spoke to various Trumpists and Trump-adjacent people and Republicans and other smart observers just to try to give me a sense of what to expect. So it's been the usual kind of hot bath of interest and intellectual discussion and gossip, and I've enjoyed every second.
I'm not going to ask you what you heard this week. I want to ask you what you're hearing. After our election, what is the vibe right now in Australia, in Sydney, about our incoming administration? What are the most dominant questions that you're getting asked most persistently about this new team?
Benjamin Franklin once said that everybody has two countries. They have their own country in France. And I feel that these days that kind of applies a bit to the United States. And what I mean is that everybody around the world, especially Australians, we have our national politics and then we have American politics, and we're deeply invested in it. And most Australians have a side. And most Australians were on Kamala Harris's side. In Lowy Institute polling, they favoured her to win 73 to 22. So I think the reason I mention that is that where the Australian debate is still up, it's still sort of caught up in that culture war. It's worried about the broad implications of President Trump. It's sort of fixating on every crazy thing that's said or every left field appointment. And then there's a sort of underneath that, there are some more serious questions about the alliance, the president's approach to alliances, about AUKUS in particular. My guidance to my colleagues at the Institute is let's throw light, not heat, at the problem. Let's analyse the administration in a cool, calm way. There will be positives as well as negatives. There'll be things he does right as well as, no doubt, lots of things he does wrong. And being here in Washington has persuaded me of that's the right approach. There's some really good people who are going into the administration. There are some more questionable things, but there's going to be a lot of stuff to watch. So that's the vibe there, and that's what I've sort of picked up here.
Well, look, as an inveterate America watcher, this means you and Lowy Institute analysis is going to be in no short supply at this point.
Yeah.
Look, final question. I ask this of everyone who comes on. I know you are a big reader. What are you reading these days, Michael?
A few things. I read this incredible book, Wizard of the Kremlin, by Giuliano da Empoli, I think.
An Italian author.
An Italian author. It's a fictionalized account of an advisor to Vladimir Putin. It's been a surprise bestseller, and I found it very interesting as someone who's proudly been sanctioned by the Kremlin. It's actually given me an insight in a way that, as you know, sometimes fiction can transport you and it can actually give you truths that are just as relevant as nonfiction. So I read Wizard in the Kremlin. I do love a thriller for a long flight, and I just read Precipice by Robert Harris. Harris is, I think, the master of these sorts of page turners.
Those love letters are really interesting, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay, so you know it. It's set in London in middle of 1914, and it's about this crazy love affair between Prime Minister Asquith and Venetia Stanley, who's an aristocratic, much younger woman, and how that's connected to the outbreak of the First World War. And then thirdly, as you know, I'm writing a book on JFK and Ted Sorensen, so I am reading a lot of JFK stuff. I'm reading secondary sources, but also I'm still in the middle of reading archival documents about JFK. So that's what's on my nightstand.
Terrific. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks again for everyone tuning in for another episode of Pacific Policy Pulse. And stay tuned for not only the analysis, but for the book when it's out too.
And the interview with Jake.
Obviously.
Yeah. Thanks, Charlie.
Cheers.